All right. Hello, everyone. You are listening to the Minding Mind podcast, where we live life with ease, connection, and permission to just be. I'm your host, LeVasseur, and welcome back to another episode. Today, I am excited for this conversation with my friend, Dr. Arlonda Stevens, because I think it's something that affects us all in a way, but also our society has groomed us to fear getting older, right? They make us think that hitting 40 is a scary milestone where it's like 1 foot in the grave and you don't know what's going to happen now. And you fear wrinkles and you fear not being seen as valuable or beautiful or whatever it is that society can create a problem for and then sell you a fix. It's going to be out there. Be afraid of getting older. Be afraid of gray hair. Be afraid of gaining weight. Be afraid of not being seen as valuable. Be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. When really what I have learned is every day that I exist on this planet, I love myself a little deeper and I feel no shame about age. I feel no discomfort about who I am. And every time I see a woman flinch or feel fear about the way she's changing, I just want to hug her and hold her and let her know that the best just keeps being revealed to us as we open ourselves to find it. So before we get started, let me just tell you very quickly, Dr. Arlonda Stevens is a certified positive psychology, health, and well-being coach with over 30 years of experience helping women over 40 turn midlife into a season of renewal. At 61, she lives her mantra, greater in your later, drawing from personal transformation to guide others through change. She created the RAVE framework to help women rediscover their purpose with clarity and confidence. A speaker, author, and founder of 2 companies, Dr. Arlonda is known for her work in midlife reinvention and resilience. Dr. Arlonda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and honor to be here and talking about my favorite topic, midlife, renaissance.
Okay. I mean, listen, just before we started recording, we were already having like a whole discussion, right? So
Yes.
why do you feel like this work is important for you?
So, as with most things, right? People say your test becomes your testimony, your mess becomes your message, all the things. And so in midlife, I found myself experiencing all the changes and transitions that usually occur when you turn over 40, right? There are changes in your physical. I remember I had 20/20 vision until I turned 40, then I couldn't see. And I used to hold everything, so far away. So, if you just need readers, right, all these things start happening. But so in addition to the physical changes, there are changes in relationships, and be it romantic relationships and partnerships or friendships and family. There is also, caring for aging parents. It's said that we are that sandwich generation, right? Where we're having children, raising children, and then we're also caring for aging parents. And then there was the empty nest, right? Where some of us who are older, right, our kids have gone off to college and everything that we had wrapped our identity in is no longer there. The other one is our career and our job. And so, we've been a lot of us baby boomers, right? I guess that's what we're called, 40 and over. We're taught to, you go and you work at a job and you're loyal and you've been there. And so, but then, you start to say, okay, is this all there is, right, to life? And so I really wanted to, because I experienced a lot of those things. Like I said, jokingly, with the readers, fortunately, I haven't had any other major real health crisis. but I did divorce after being married for 25 years, 27 years, which was very different. Of course, you don't get married thinking, especially, the longer you're in, you get past the 7-year itch, as they call it, and you think, okay, we're in here for the long haul. But after 25 years of marriage, in my mid 50s, I found myself divorced. At that same time, my mom was in assisted living dealing with Alzheimer's. And so, going through that journey. And at that same time, my 3 children were away at college and had graduated college. And so I was really an empty nest. And my job, while I had been, working in financial services for over 20 something years, 28 years or so, it's like, okay, there's got to be more, right? When I turned 50, 50 was that number where I start like, wow, I probably have more years behind me than I have ahead of me, right?
Mm,
There's some of us that live to be 100, but by and large, I think the average lifespan for women is like mid 80s, 85, somewhere around there. I'm like, wow, I only have 30 more terms around the sun. Like so I started thinking about all these things. I became very, introspective, and I wanted women to feel that midlife, with all of the changes and transitions, doesn't have to be an end, right? Because typically when you hear midlife, the next thing you hear is crisis or chaos,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
You don't really hear midlife and renewal. But I wanted women to think that despite all of the changes, all the transitions, this could be a time for new beginnings, for rediscovering of yourself, for doing something new and different,
Mhm.
right? And I always say we are not our grandparents, right? Some of our grandparents in their 60s were older, but that's the way society was at that time. Now we're in our 60s and we are vibrant on so many levels, right? Starting things, starting businesses. And so I just want women to feel like you can age with ease and grace and embrace it and take all of these changes and transitions and some endings as a new beginning. And so, like I say, you can experience greater in your later. So
Yeah. You
that's
know,
how it really resonates with me.
for sure, for sure. I want to go to that time of you going through divorce, taking care of your mom, having your children out of the house, because I can imagine that those are major life stressors happening all at the same time. And I would think our default tends to be to feel crushed, to feel like lost, right? Overwhelmed, shut down, isolation, like all the things that I know that my default has tended to be when I get overwhelmed, I isolate. And it's not because I don't want to be a burden to other people, it's because I don't always have the skill or tool to help me and even recognize what I need. So, in that time, what do you think it was that helped you be able to see this this could be a sign that something more is coming for me, or that I can create more, or that I am more than I've allowed myself to be? How did you go from maybe that default, if you felt that at all, to recognizing the opportunity for renewal?
So for me, it really was my divorce was the catalyst, right? So before we separated, I knew, and it was, I mean, I can remember it, that I just woke up one day and I was like, this is not God's best for me, right? And it wasn't a terrible marriage, right? It wasn't, physically abusive or, anything like that. Yes, probably some emotional and psychological abuse, but, by and large, it was okay, right? But I just knew that this didn't feel like God's best for me. And one of my favorite scriptures, it says, God came that we may have life and we may have it more abundantly. And I felt like this wasn't abundant living. And I knew then that abundance wasn't just material things and money. Although, yes, that's good. And we would all love to have more, right? But I knew that this isn't what the abundant life looked like. And so I just had that hope that abundance has to look different than this, right? And so that kind of propelled me. And while I didn't go into deep isolation because, as women, as we normally do, we got to keep things going, right? I didn't have the luxury just to sit down and shut down and, not do anything, but I knew I didn't want to stay in this place. And from my marriage, I knew I didn't want to be bitter. I wanted to be better. I wanted to grow, pick out the good things about it, figure out the things that I learned about myself and about marriage, because, oftentimes it's easy, he, where I was like, there's some things I did. So it was the growth. And so for me, I jumped right into therapy, and I was in therapy for 2 years. The first year I was going almost weekly, then I went every other week, then it was monthly, and it stopped when COVID hit because I was going in person because I did just want to be better. I wanted to enjoy life. I didn't want to be mean and miserable and mad like we see some older women who may have, divorced after a long period of time. I just want to live a great life because I was what I say relatively young. I was in my mid 50s, right? And so I'm like, I got some life to live and I want to enjoy it. With my mom had been suffering with Alzheimer's she passed in a couple years ago. As a matter of fact, it'd be 2 years at the end of the month, but for like over 13 years. So I was kind of used to, I had accepted that, right? And I knew what that looked like and what it was going to look like. And so I had been dealing with that for a while. And so I got used to my mom and the way that I knew her not being there. And so I had other women, older women, pour into me, support me. The kids, and I say this, I enjoyed being a mom. I have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, or 2 daughters and a son. And I called myself a VIP, a very involved parent. So they were all active in sports and dance and cheer and all the things. And I was there. So one of the things that my mother said to me was, healthy birds fly away. And so I was glad to see that we have poured into them, raised them, given them the experiences so they could go off and be their own person and free to be who they were. So it's kind of bittersweet with the emptiness, right? I was glad to see them live their life, but I enjoyed having them around. And so I started going back to those things that I enjoyed doing, where I didn't have to be at a football game on a Friday night in the rain, right? Or I didn't have to be at a dance competition all day on a Saturday and a Sunday. And so just start getting back to me, rediscovering me. And that was a journey because the me that I remember before, marriage and children had been on the back burner for close to 30 years. So it was a real period of self-discovery. And through that self-discovery was embracing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because if you're honest with yourself, there's some things like, oh, I don't know if I like that. Well, why am I that way? Why is this? Or, so I had to recognize those things and then take actions to start learning new things, right? Being around different people. And that's when I start getting into receiving coaching in different areas of my life. Like I said, the therapy. And then it just kind of propelled me on. And I knew that I wasn't the only one, right? Going through all of these different things. And I just wanted us to be better, live better, and enjoy life. and that our experiences don't define us and they don't have to be the end, but truly a renaissance, right? And that's why, I call my company Midlife Renaissance Collective, right? Because I want this to be a period of renewal. And there's so many things, and I hear so many stories of women who, may have been downsized from their job or, right, several years before they were going to retire. And then they go and start their own consulting business, right? So, like, you can literally turning lemons into lemonade. But I'm saying, embrace it, enjoy it, grab all the lessons, learn, and keep moving because you can experience new things, a new beginning.
Mhm. What would you say to the woman that is like in the middle of it, just in the thick of feeling like their entire life has been about their roles, that their entire identity is rooted in who they were to other people? How do you address that woman and the struggle that she feels of, I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what I like. I don't even know where to start. What do you say to her?
I say, stop it, stop, and put yourself somewhere on your priority list, primarily at the top. And that's something I didn't do, right? When I was raising my children, self-care and all that stuff wasn't even a thing, right? So I didn't do any of that. But as I see my daughter and my son raising their daughters, right? I look at my daughter. She would take, she's like, I'm going to go get my nails done, right? Or I'm going to go on a trip with my girlfriends from college. I'm like, oh my God, like, and the baby's only one? Like, what do you mean? Right. And so, but I love it. And so I would encourage, like, just stop. Everything will be okay. Right. And so when you think about self care, and I'm not just talking about the pampering, the nails and stuff, and although that is good, and, that is a good place to start if you're not used to doing that, but at least just take an hour out of the day, out of the week to do something you enjoy doing. If that's just sitting on the couch, watching some, what I call ratchet TV, whatever you want to do, right? Taking a walk, knitting, crocheting, roller skate, like whatever it is you do, take time for yourself because it helps the entire ecosystem, right? I remember when my youngest daughter was in high school when her older brother and sister had gone away, and it was just she and I and, my former husband. And I was taking her to school, and she was like, Mom, why are you always so mad?
Mm,
And I never thought that I was mad, but I probably was, between working and this and that and making sure the ones at college had what they needed and, you know, help them with internships, just all the things. And so as I thought about that on the other side, like I probably needed to do some things to refresh myself.
mm,
And if I could have refreshed myself, I could have been a better mom, a better sister, a better daughter, right? And I don't just mean, better how society terms what's good, better, or best, but just giving them the best version of myself, right?
mm,
Because we all know when we're tired, when we're stressed, when we're cranky, when things don't go well at work, we don't always give those closest to us our best selves. And so I would say, in all of your trying to be a quote unquote good mom and good wife and good this, right? And you're not knowing what you like or what you enjoy, you're not really helping the cause, right? Because you could be a better mom, right? If you're not uptight and, stressed out about, well, how's this going to happen and doing all those things. So I would just say, stop it. The world is not going to stop and everybody will be okay. Right. As I look back and I remember, like, I didn't hardly miss a football, basketball, I didn't miss an activity. Right. And as I look back now and, my oldest will be 32 and my son is 29 and my youngest will be 27 this year. Like, I probably could have missed a couple basketball games to go on a date night with my husband,
Mhm.
right? Although we were both at the games, but I probably could have missed a few games. I probably could have went to my class reunion from college for the weekend and missed a day's competition, right? They would be okay. So I would say stop it, make time for yourself. At least start small. If we can just get 15 minutes out of the day, right? Then, at least once a week and
Mhm.
then at least once a month. Now, if you have small children and responsibilities, of course, you may not better go on a weekend trip, but it doesn't take all that. It just takes a little bit of time to be refreshed, to do something you enjoy doing, and take that time to refresh your soul. And Evelyn, you raised such another point. I think about it. One of my meetings I had, it was called Midlife Women Meet. It was not a full conference, but a couple hours. And last year we were talking about self-love. So it was right around Valentine's Day and, playing on that, the love. And so we're going to talk about self-love. And so I asked the women to write down 20 things that they love about themselves. It was
Mm.
so telling. Some women started crying because they couldn't come up with 20 things that they loved about themselves. And it was really like a real moment, like, wow. But if I said there's 20 things you love about your child, your spouse, your job, your best friend, you would have had 50 things on the list.
Mhm. Or
And
if you
so
want to be
yeah, right. So you really have to take some time for you. You need
Mhm.
quiet time just to collect your thoughts. And the other thing I would say is get a support system. A
Mhm.
lot of us try and wear that superwoman cape that we can do it all and, bring home the bacon fried up in the pan and all the things. Like, and some of us are making the bacon, buying the bacon, cooking the bacon, cleaning up the bacon. Like, ask for help because I think society is, oh, you got to do all these things to be a good this. No, you don't. Ask for help,
Mhm.
right? So those are a couple things that I would suggest to the woman who just doesn't know where to start.
Yeah. And I think it's important too that there's a part of it that fuels you, right? There's a part of it that starts to add a little spark back into what you feel. But I think
Mhm.
the underlying message is even taking 5, 10, 15 minutes to do something for you, even if that is just sitting on the porch with a cup of tea and no distraction for 10 minutes, right? The underlying message is that your subconscious mind gets a hit of, I matter,
Yes,
right? I matter too. And I think that the thing that we as moms, as wives, as women who are trying to do all the things, we forget that when we spend so much time giving and giving and giving and depleting ourselves, the version of us that we're sharing is scraps of who we actually are.
yep,
We're giving our family, we're saying, I love you so much. I do and do and do and do for you, but I could never really show you the full me because the full me is always running on empty, right? So I like to think about interacting with my family and saying, like, my children deserve to know me. They deserve to know what it looks like to live life loving yourself too. And they're not going to get that from the mom who is dead tired 24 hours a day. So if I love them as much as I know I do, then I need to be all of me for me first so that they can benefit from that relationship.
absolutely. I agree, right? Just doing those 5 or 10 minutes, like you said, it does reinforce that I matter
Mhm.
because we don't often hear that, right? Our little kids, sometimes they'll say thank you, but they say thank you, mom. But you know, you don't always get that, oh, you're so valuable, you're so important, right? And so sometimes you have to encourage yourself and you have to show people around you that you value you,
Mhm.
right? And so, and again, these are things that I learned post marriage, I'm learning in midlife. And that's why I want to get this message out. Like, you do matter. Your needs, your wants, and your desires, they matter as much as anybody else around you,
Mhm.
right? But you have to have some agency and take some responsibility to make that happen. And sometimes we think, oh, well, my husband's going to make me happy or the kids will do this. And yes, you find joy in those moments, but you are responsible for knowing what you need to be okay,
Mhm.
right? So that your family and those you serve, whether on your job, in your church, in your community, get the best version of you.
Mhm.
And we've all heard, you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's true. But in actuality, you give from the overflow.
Mhm.
That's where the giving starts, right? When your cup is overflowing with confidence, with love, with joy, with peace, then you can share that with others, right? If your cup is half empty and you're just trying to make it, fake it till you make it, and which another something that we've been told, that's not always a good thing to do, right? No, I need help. I need to stop. I need to rest. I can't go here, right? And as well as teaching those around us to, I don't want to say fend for themselves, but to also be okay, right? To be self-reliant. Now, of course, you got a 3-month-old baby, there's only so much you can do. But as your children get older and they're out of the house, the level that you have to give to make sure they're okay should start to decrease, right? Because I say both can be true. I can love you and I can love me. You matter and I matter. Both are true. It doesn't have to be, mutually exclusive or one at the expense of the other.
Mhm. I think too that when you say that, because I can think about so many of the people that I know, and just women in general will say things like, my family doesn't respect my time. My family doesn't see how much energy it takes to keep this house clean, to do all the things, right? Like they come in and they drop their cups on the counter. Or I had a girlfriend say one time, like, my husband constantly just throws his socks around the floor. And she was so irritated. And I understand the irritation, but there's a part of me that says there's also ownership in that. Your husband keeps throwing his socks on the floor, and every time they magically disappear because you pick them up, right? So there's a part of it that is frustration that you see them not seeing you the way that you want to be seen, or them not treating you the way that you want to be treated. It's not even about you. It's about an action that is happening that you continue to fix instead of address him, or maybe deal with the fact that the sock is going to be there until he picks it up, right? Like there's ownership of teaching people to treat you how you want to be treated, and also teaching your family how to take ownership of the home together, right?
Mhm,
I talk to
mhm,
my family all the time about how, like, this house is not my responsibility. We live here together. We
mhm,
eat, we sleep, we lay on this couch. We have the same washer and dryer, like we all wear clothing. We all use the outdoors. This is our this is our sanctuary to take care of together.
mhm.
And I feel like that's something that I had to learn too, because for the longest, man, listen, cleaning the house all the time because it had to look like it came out of a magazine, right? Like I didn't want anything out of place. I remember when my girls were little, like I would mop the floor every night because I didn't want them crawling on dirty floor. Girl, why are you creating this stress and then complaining about stress? right? So there, I think there is parts of us that want to do and do and do for others, but we also don't want to take accountability for how we have created some of the stress in our day.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And I was the same way, right? I was doing all the things. I was cooking and cleaning and doing this and doing that. And then you just get to that place where, like you said, you have to teach those around you, right? But it's hard. At least for me, it was hard because that's not how we're taught. That's not what the instructions that we're given. That's not what we see, right? And we all want to be this ideal mother, ideal wife, ideal employee. And so we think that this is what it is we need to do. But I also think it goes deeper than that, where we have not always been given the freedom to give voice, to share our voice and let our voice be heard. Right. And so because of that, it's hard to speak up. And that was something that I know for me, right? As much as I am a good leader, I can be a good follower. So I could go to work and lead and have a voice and come home and, turn it off, right? For a variety, keeping the peace. Don't want to start an argument. So all of these different things that we do and we don't speak up.
Mhm.
We lose our voice. And I understand some of it because we haven't always been provided safe spaces to give voice to how we feel, right? Particularly those who work outside of the home in a corporate or any environment, right? It's, can't cry, you gotta be strong, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, right? I remember the commercial, never let them see you sweat, right? So all of these things, and so we are taught to not speak up and use our voice. And so therefore we create these monsters, right? And then we complain about them and we don't know how to get out of it, right? And so that's why I like where we are now with a lot of the coaches and women empowering women and encouraging women that you have a voice, that you matter, your voice matters, your needs matter. So hopefully it will help women to start to embrace it. And it's hard to unlearn, things that you've been taught over and over and over and over again, right? But hopefully you hear it enough in little bits and pieces and parts that you start to embrace it and start taking small steps. And that's what I want women to do. Start taking small steps. So when you get 55 or 65 or whatever, you're like, hey, I'm in full bloom. And it also helps to have a good support system. So my children have been very supportive of my journey. They have become my biggest cheerleaders. I'm gonna go smile. Okay, mom, you're out there, you're doing all the things. And so, yeah, just embrace yourself. Embrace yourself.
And I love that. I feel like the work that we do, and not just on a professional sense, but like on a personal sense, to be able to see ourselves fully, to accept ourselves, to learn to love all that we are. I feel like that gives younger women who are starting in marriage, who are starting motherhood, I feel like it gives them permission to maintain an identity outside of all those roles, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think that is the beautiful thing that comes from women working with women and women empowering women, like you said,
Hmm.
is to recognize that that idea that you had to be everything for everybody all the time was literally meant to support men, right? That thought was created by men for men, and we were the byproduct. We didn't really have a voice. We had roles that meant we had to care for everyone in every and that's not just at home. That was in the workplace, that was out in society, that was in our churches. Like,
Mhm.
women are just literally getting permission to be be first, and then to do.
Yes, and I love it. And you're so right, right? So, as my daughters look at me now, right, the version of their mom now is such a different version. And I think it is giving and showing them how to be in a different way. And I'm glad that, as I see my youngest daughter raising her daughter, how she is embracing who she is and doing things that fuel her. So she shows her daughter, her partner, like, this is what it looks like, right? For me to value me. And so we do have, that I say it's a responsibility to show women, younger women, like, yes, you matter, and start off mattering, right? So it's hard for those of us who've been on a job for, 20 something years now, all of a sudden to go in and say, well, I'm not going to do it this way, right? It's like how you start is how you finish. And so start off doing those things. And so it is so very important.
So much. And I just think also that the more that you just embrace being you, the more that you learn to just see you, the more it really just frees the next woman. It frees the women you interact with. It helps them feel seen. Yes, we're all dealing with struggles of some sort, but so much of it can be alleviated by putting a real pause on the things we think we're supposed to do and just do things for ourselves too. Like, I feel like that literally changes the makeup of your entire existence.
It does. And once you embrace all of you, the good, the bad, and the ugly, like,
Mhm.
I know some things that I can do. Oh, I know I can be critical, or I know I can do this, but that's a part of me. And once you have that awareness and acknowledgement, you can course correct along the way. But know that that's a part of me. And I embrace all of me and love all of me, and then not just on the inside, but on the outside, right? Particularly for women who are older. So I have no problems telling anybody how old I am. First of all, because I know I don't look how old I am, but it's just a blessing to be here and to have the wisdom and, to go forth and be able to share that. So yeah, you gotta, it helps to fuel yourself, right? And share. And I think it becomes part of your legacy, right? Embrace the wrinkles, embrace the, now, embrace your weight, your size, whatever you are. If you want to be smaller or lose weight because that's something you want to do for you, right? Not because society says that the ideal weight is 125 pounds, right? Or, you can't have any wrinkles or, gray. I love a lot of the movements of women embracing their gray, right? And it's just so liberating, right? I'm getting there, I still like having, but I am just so happy that we're in this place where we can embrace all of who we are inside and out. Because in our society, we don't always value the elderly and older people and the wisdom that we bring. One of the things that I struggled with early on in my coaching was I'm too old,
Mm.
right? And I never felt it was too late, but that was too old. Like, who am I at, 55 to get out here and start, empowering other women when you see so many other coaches, right? And again, looking externally for validation, who are 20, 30, 40 something, that are doing all the things that you envision doing, right? But I had to realize, like, I have wisdom, I have experience. So I have experience that I don't care what a 20 something tells you, right? They don't have that experience. A 20 something doesn't have the experience of dealing with an empty nest.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so understanding that at whatever age you are, that you have value to bring, to add to those, behind you.
Oh yeah. And I think that you said it best when you talked in the beginning about like your mess becoming your message, right? You maybe like for me, I'm not called to talk to teenagers, right? God didn't put on my heart, God didn't put in my purpose to be somebody who talks about, I don't know, workplace, for example. You know, my age is not relevant to my calling,
Mhm,
right? Women suffering from not feeling worthy, women suffering from literally being taught to silence themselves is what God wants me to address. And I had to go through it first to know how to come out of it.
mhm,
So my age does not determine my expertise. My
mhm.
experience does. And I love that you even brought that up because, yes, like age is something that we tend to judge ourselves for when really aging in and of itself is a blessing. Not everybody gets to celebrate their next birthday, right? I've lost friends who should be my age, but they're not, right? And really like then the goal is not to just get older, but it is to learn to reflect. It is to learn to continue to learn, right? So to become who you're supposed to be without everybody else's expectations and opinions riding on your shoulders. So I think I love that despite when you started, it was the right time.
It was the right time. It was the right time, right? And you're so right about just embracing what your calling is and who you're called to help or be, right? And so it was important to me, right? Because a lot of these things don't become apparent until midlife, right? And so you've lived, 30, 40, 45 years being conditioned in a certain way, and now you're having to unlearn these things. And I just want us to be able to enjoy the rest of the years that we have free, enjoy peace, really just having that freedom and knowing who you are. I just finished up for the month of July. A lot of my content on social media and newsletters and emails have been the freedom, the joys of the freedom in midlife, right? And so just embracing this time. And you're so right about every year being a blessing. So in May, I went to my 40th college reunion, right? And I graduated from Fisk University in 1985. And so there were maybe about 100 of us in our graduating class, maybe a little over that. So Fisk was a small school in Nashville. So this year at the reunion, we recognize 17 classmates who have died.
Wow.
17. So we're all 61, turning 62 this year, right? And so whenever I hear that, it's like, wow, that just shakes me and makes me realize like life is too short to not be who you were created to be
Mhm. Mhm.
and enjoy your life. And so I want us like, hey, we don't know how many of us are going to make it back to the next reunion in
Mhm.
5 years, right? Statistics show that all of us probably won't make it there. So we better enjoy life and be who we're called to be. Enjoy yourself, enjoy you, enjoy those around you, your family and loved ones, and really experience greater in your later. Because we
Mhm.
just don't know. Life is
Yeah.
short.
And I feel like
And you
hearing
want to create that legacy.
100%. I feel like hearing that could be a little bit fear inducing. Thinking about the end of your life, right, could make you feel some sort of fear that could also be coupled with some sort of regret. But I mean, I think the answer to that is to really start to infuse joy into your daily life. And I'm not saying that all day, every day is going to be happy. I'm saying that joy and happiness truly are a choice, right?
Yes,
You get to
yes,
decide how you're going to live. You get to decide how you're going to show up. You get to decide how you're going to embrace yourself and who you're going to be. And you get to change that. You get to evolve. That also is another blessing. So I think that just really being able to, yes, see and acknowledge and love yourself, but also decide to live,
to
right?
live.
Get
Choose to
off
live.
autopilot, to stop just doing things the same way because that's the way they've always been done, and instead choose the life that you desire. Choose you.
Yep, choose you. And that's the thing, right? So it's not meant to induce fear, but to say, hey, you have an opportunity to live and enjoy your life,
Mhm.
whatever that looks like for you. And you should do it, because if you're waiting for that day, someday, one day when the kids are gone off to college, or one day when this happens, or one day when that day is today.
Okay.
Choose you every day, right? So I try to do at least one thing every day that I enjoy doing. It could be as simple as drinking my unsweetened iced tea, right? That's something I enjoy. Like, find something that you enjoy doing every day, right? And just celebrate you. Why? Because you matter. Your needs, your wants, your desires, they matter.
Mhm. I love that. Dr. Arlonda, first of all, I love our conversations. I do.
Me too.
Tell me a little bit about, or tell our audience a little bit about where they can find you, what types of things that you're doing with your clients, and how they can connect with you.
Okay, would love to. So you can find me on all social media. Well, mostly it's Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn and the handle is at the at symbol DRARLONDA, Dr. Arlonda. Also have a Facebook group called Midlife Renaissance Collective. Would love for all of you to join. I go live in the group a couple times a month, and just share insights and love to have conversation. That's where the conversations are. I am hosting a conference this year in Cleveland, Ohio, in the Cleveland area on October 25th. And so honored to welcome Miss Evelyn to the to the conference. But it is Midlife Women Empowerment Conference. And so if you follow me on social, you will see that. But I would really love for you to join my email list, because like I said, we put out a monthly newsletter with a lot of what I like to call gems, and whatever our theme is in our newsletters. And you can find that at drarlondastevens.com.
Awesome. I will make sure that everything is linked in the show notes. But you know that before you're able to go, the question of the hour has arrived. And in the Minding My community, we're all about like releasing the shoulds, releasing all the expectations that society and church and family and everything else has put on us, and really learning to be instinctual, trust our gut over everything, to trust our inner knowing above anything outside of us. That is minding mind. That is leading from where God where God's voice comes out of me, leading from there. Everything else is not mine and I don't want it. So how, Arlonda, how has learning to mind yours, to be instinctual and intuitive and really trust yourself and your knowing, how does that impact the legacy that you're going to leave?
Okay, I knew this was coming. It has just been for me, my faith is key, right? And so trusting that what I want, what I desire has been given to me by God, right? And so in doing that, so when I have a thought to do something, I know it's God inspired, right? It didn't just come from anywhere. And so that allows me to know that I am moving where I'm supposed to move and serving who I'm supposed to serve. And in terms of a legacy, whenever I get a confirmation from an email or something that I was said, and people reply like, yeah, that really spoke to me, or yeah, this is what was needed, it's confirmation that I'm minding mine
Mhm.
and I am doing what I've been called to do, right? And so when they think of Dr. Arlonda or midlife women or, you know, Renaissance and renewal and starting over, they will remember that they matter. And that's because something I've been said or you've seen or you've read. And so it's just really trusting the call within me, right? And that I am moving and serving in the way that I've been called to serve and being okay with that because I know early on you look at all the things and all the people like I should be doing it this way.
Mhm.
And then I had to come and say, no, that is not how God has called me to do it. And trusting that how I've been called to serve is what is needed in this time for a certain group of women, a certain group of people. So that's how I try to mind mine, just trusting that I'm aligned.
Yeah, and then that literally just gives everyone else permission to do the same.
Yes.
I love it. Dr. Arlonda, thank you for being here with me today. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us both and tuning in to another episode of Minding Mine. If this episode resonated with you, I want you to please comment, rate, and review the podcast. You know that your feedback continues to help me grow. And until next time, I want you to go live your life on your terms and please mind your business. We will catch you in the next episode.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here.